A home. It's something we all need. But for too many, having a place to call home is out of reach. The challenges can seem insurmountable. And yet, each and every day, people are coming together to provide safe, quality, accessible, and affordable housing for those in need. Welcome to Let's Talk Housing. I'm your host, Sara Goldvine. Join us as we listen to and learn from people in British Columbia who are creating strong, inclusive communities where everyone can thrive. Hi, and welcome to Let's Talk Housing. I'm your host, Sara Goldvine. To end off our season, we are joined by a special guest, Mita Naidu, BC Housing's Director of Content Strategy. You may already have seen her co-hosting this season. I'm so excited to announce that Mita will be the new host of Let's Talk Housing, starting in Season 5. As we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we're recording today from the territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh, who've been the stewards of these lands since time immemorial. I offer my respect to their people, past and present. For transparency, this episode is being recorded in December of 2024 and reflects the issues and priorities of the time. Mita, welcome back to Let's Talk Housing.
Thank you, Sarah. Nice to be here. I actually have an idea. I was thinking we could flip the script a little bit, and I know you normally ask the questions and host the podcast, but for this episode, I thought I could ask you a few questions about your journey at BC Housing. What do you think?
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah, okay. I think it's important to note that you are heading into a new journey in your career, and we wish you all the best, but I think this is a wonderful opportunity to just chat with you and hear some of your reflections and thoughts about your career and your trajectory here at BC Housing and all the impact you've made. Could you share a little bit about your career path here?
Absolutely. I mean, so I actually started my career in research and policy. And then at a certain point, I realized that great ideas are really important, but it's even more important that people understand and mobilize behind those ideas, which is what brought me to communications. And I was able to work in the communications, marketing, engagement, public affairs, and government relations for a number of mission-driven organizations in affordable housing and public education and mental health. And then the opportunity came to join BC Housing. And this is just a fantastic organization doing exciting work around the province, which is what brought me here. And in my time at BC Housing, the organization has scaled in response to the needs in community and the investment from government, which has meant that we've been able to take on more work, complex work, and really move into new fields and new areas where we weren't delivering services even just a few years ago, which has brought the opportunity for me to also take on supporting additional teams and leading organization-wide initiatives. So that's sort of what brings me here today.
You know, it's so interesting. We both have comms backgrounds, but we come from different areas. But one thing I find rare and exceptional in your work, and something I'm very drawn to, is the layering or the combination or the grounding of equity and communications work. And I think that's something very unique that you bring specifically. How has that developed for you here at BC Housing? What has that meant for you at BC Housing?
One of the reasons why I was drawn to join BC Housing initially was the value that the organization, right from the executive on down, places on equity as well as on reconciliation. So that was a real draw for me. And I think that it's partly because as an organization, when we're working in the housing system, and the same could be said really with mental health and social services in general, is that every day we see the impacts of oppression, we see the impacts of marginalization, we see the impacts of colonialism in our work every day because we're serving the folks who are most impacted negatively by those systems. And so it leads itself to really important conversations around how we build better systems that are going to support everyone. And so I would say that at first, when I joined BC Housing, it was the draw for the organization was the real recognition of the importance of embedding an equity analysis right across the entire organization. And over time, I've also had the opportunity to work more closely as well with the Office of Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging, in particular over the past year, and support their work as we advance the organization-wide equity action plan.
And that's a big mouthful. What is that exactly?
Yeah, so our equity action plan, which is something that has been underway for some time, so I certainly wouldn't want to suggest that I'm taking credit for it, but I've been able to layer in a bit of support for the team over the past few months. The Equity Action Plan is BC Housing's commitment to to our own employees, to our partners, and to the people we serve around specific and concrete actions that we will take to advance equity in the work that we do. So ultimately, we recognize that to be able to deliver on our vision of a future where everyone has a place to call home, we need to understand what the barriers are for folks to accessing housing, and then address those in our processes, in our policies, in the way that we work, and also, of course, through communications, so that we can deliver the best services for the people in British Columbia.
And that's so critical. Communities are so diverse with such different needs across the province. This couldn't have been an easy undertaking in a climate in which people are questioning the value of equity and diversity. But yet BC Housing has made that commitment. And that's really important. What are some of the challenges that have come along with having such a deep commitment to equity at BC Housing?
I think that it's similar challenges to any large transformation initiative, to be honest. And I think that the challenge is always with any transformative change, getting the pace right and the sequencing right, because to be sustainable, change needs to bring people along. And the same is true for equity. And that's in particular challenging because of the diversity of people who are being served and impacted. So there's the way that equity work impacts people and populations is very, very diverse because of the diversity of experiences. And so getting that balance right between delivering tangible change and moving forward in a way that really impacts people while ensuring that the change is sustainable and meaningful and not just performative is, in my experience, that's the most challenging part of the work.
And there are different ways to approach the work, right? So we have policy, we have programs, and we have communications. And I'm a big fan of storytelling. It is something that has been embedded deeply in my community and my family as a way to communicate, as a way to share, as a way to learn, as a way to listen to things that matter to us all. So how does communications specifically play into moving the needle when it comes to equity?
Well, we know that humans are wired for story. Sharing information through a story leads to better information retention. People will retain 6 to 20 times more information if it's delivered through a story. And storytelling is also very effective at building empathy through narrative transportation and neural coupling. I won't get into the brain science, but in essence, we've got brain science now that proves what societies have known since time immemorial, which is story. Story is a way to bring people together. And so for me, story is particularly important in moving any significant change forward. And it's even more important for moving forward equity work. So there's this Thomas King quote. He's my favorite author. I adore Thomas King. And he has this quote: "Stories are wondrous things, and they are dangerous." And that's so true because stories are so powerful. We need to understand the power dynamics at play so that we can use storytelling for good. And that is integral for advancing any change that's going to have a positive impact on community, including equity work.
And that's part of bringing people along, is considering the importance of story and how we share all the work. What are some of the lessons that have come from all of these realizations that you've made at BC Housing?
Yeah. So when I first joined BC Housing, I came in with my 90-day plan, and I had I had it mapped out, and I actually mostly hit all my goals in the 90-day plan. And then right as I was moving into the next phase, we got hit by a little something called a COVID-19 global pandemic. And so I think that one of my big lessons in my time here has been just the importance that it's really important to mobilize people around a vision. And you can only plan so much. If people are mobilized around the end goal, though, we can absolutely get there because the rest sorts itself out. So what we've discovered, for example, in that first period of time, in that first year at BC Housing, was we actually delivered on some of our goals way ahead of plan, and others needed to be bumped out. But ultimately, we were able as a team to mobilize towards our end goal of where we wanted to be, despite the buffeting changes that were coming. And that's something that has really continued to impact how I approach my work.
What have been some of the key things that you're really proud of that your branch delivered?
Honestly, what I'm most proud of is the team. We've grown a team that is just full of really, really wonderful people like you, Mita, and people like the team that puts this podcast together. And we have a collection of really, really great folks who support each other, who push each other, who hold each other accountable for doing the work well, and who have each other's backs when we're trying new things and really stretching ourselves and trying to move into new spaces. And I feel like, projects come and go and they're so important, but if you can get the team right, if you can support each other, that's to me the most important part, and something that I think we have been able to really foster here at BC Housing.
I completely agree. I'm a year in, and I think I should make it transparent for listeners that you are my leader in the branch, and I've really been so moved by the way that you have emphasized culture, and the importance of kindness and compassion and equity, and team building and community building. And I think those values, once they're fostered internally, naturally flow externally. I can definitely say that's something that I've seen over the last year of my tenure here, and that's something that you lead beautifully. And I'm very excited for your next role and for all the things you're going to achieve. What's next for you?
I've got the housing bug, and I'm also exceptionally passionate about mental health, and really building a future where people with mental illness are supported so that they can thrive. And so I'm really pleased that I'm going to be moving on to Coast Mental Health that delivers services for folks with mental illness and addictions, including through housing and employment services and other programs. And so I'm going to be joining that team in the new year as Chief Operating Officer.
It's amazing. And we're so excited for you. And we will absolutely stay in contact and in community with you. Sad for us, to be honest, it's sad for us, but we will carry forth your legacy. And I agree, we have an amazing team in place that really values the same values that you do. I'm curious as to who your mentors are and who are the people that have really kind of influenced your perspectives and values.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I started asking why in kindergarten, and then I never stopped, much to the chagrin of some of my teachers. And I think because of that, I take inspiration from some really unusual places. I really like asking people questions, which is why I love this podcast, and really understanding what drives people. And so, for example, here at BC Housing, I had one of our frontline folks, a janitor, reach out to me and directly and wanted to talk about communications. And we hopped on a call. We had a digital meeting because she was on the site, and was able to get some really good guidance around what deskless and frontline workers were looking for. She was a long service employee. So I think that for me, I really like to look for any opportunity for folks to be able to tell me more about what they need, and perhaps shine a light on where some gaps are so that I can really help drive impact in a way that makes the most change for folks.
I would love to know the genesis of this podcast. How did this come into being?
Yeah, so this is season 4. And of course, lots of organizations are doing podcasts these days. So I don't want to pretend that BC Housing had this idea that no one else did. What we really wanted to do, though, and what the pitch was initially, was finding an opportunity for BC Housing as a provincial agency, as an organization that works with hundreds of nonprofits across the province, to be able to create a space for voices that would not otherwise be heard as part of the housing conversation. And part of the reason why we did that was really recognizing that one of the biggest barriers to delivering housing and homelessness services in community is a lack of information or sometimes blatant misinformation. So our goal was to create a space where we could help address that lack of information and misinformation by creating the space for folks to share their stories and their perspectives, and creating that content that we could share with communities, ultimately so that we can help create more housing and homelessness services right across British Columbia.
And content comes in so many forms. You are at the helm of all of the ways that BC Housing engages with the public. The podcast is one way, websites, social media, industry engagement, and community engagement. There's so many ways that we reach out and try to ensure that the people impacted the most by housing issues are heard. And I really think this podcast is an amazing opportunity to get deeper into those stories when we can't do that elsewhere.
Absolutely. And the interesting thing about housing is, even though for BC Housing, our services we directly serve a relatively small portion of the population, compared to, for example, BC Hydro, right? Or some other Crown agencies. However, everyone has an experience of home. And certainly when the housing system is not working well, that impacts almost everybody. There's a small portion of folks who aren't impacted, but the vast majority of people are impacted when the housing system is not working well. So part of what's interesting about this space is that we do need to prioritize those folks that we serve directly. And we also need to ensure that we're demonstrating to everyone how we're helping the housing system work well, because that's ultimately what helps us ensure that we have a thriving community where everyone wants to live, and everyone can be part of a community where they feel like they belong and they can have a healthy and thriving life.
And communities come in all shapes and sizes, and they're internal and they're external. BC Housing is a community. We are, 1,300 people strong and growing, and those stories need to be told too, I think. We are all experiencing the housing concern and crisis in different ways, whether we're working towards solving the problem, whether we're living and experiencing the problem. There are many voices internally here too that would be really nice to highlight and bring forward.
Well, Mita, maybe I can ask you a question.
Absolutely.
What are the plans for season 5? Are you moving forward with the podcast?
We are absolutely moving forward. We have some amazing surprises ahead. I think what's fascinating about this particular podcast is that there are so many stories within housing and so many wonderful projects being done in the sector that we can highlight and share. And I'm not going to have your voice and your particular take, but I'm going to do it my way a little bit, and just really lead with a curiosity and an interest in all the things that the housing sector does. There's a lot of change, and there's a lot of momentum forward, and there's a lot of drive to do the right thing and support people. And I would love to just dive into that and dig into that.
Oh, I'm so looking forward to it. I'm going to tune in. Absolutely. Number 1 fan over here.
Thanks, Sarah. Talk soon.
As we wrap season 4, I'd like to extend a special thanks to everyone who has made this podcast happen. When we launched Let's Talk Housing, it was the first for a large public sector organization in BC. We knew we wanted to create a space for discussions with the many folks in BC who are coming together to provide safe, quality, accessible, and affordable housing for those in need. We weren't sure how it would turn out, and it's turned out to be a great success. This only happened because of the support of our colleagues here at BC Housing, the trust of the province,
and most of all, the goodwill of the many guests who have brought their wisdom and insights to this space. I'm excited to listen in to what comes next on the podcast in Season 5, under the guidance of incoming host Mita Naidu. Let's talk again soon.